All right. Okay, now. So we're live right now. Let me get the recording going here. So this is going to be for YouTube also. Shalom, my brothers and sisters out there. I just wanted to do a video. All right, so shalom all Facebook Live, all my friends that will be seeing this stream. Okay, so this is also going to be on our YouTube channel, like I just mentioned prior to this stream just starting. Okay, so I'm live right now. You guys can be commenting on the Facebook Live. I'm going to be doing a video called Why We Should Look into the Septuagint and the Targums and other manuscripts of the Old Testament, other versions of the Old Testament. A lot of people from my past have always said, oh, the Septuagint's not different from the Old Testament we have in our Bibles. You know, it's exactly the same. I'll show you how that's wrong. First, I want to introduce anyone that has not heard of these. This is known as the Aramaic version of the Pentateuch. These are manuscripts that have been rumored to date all the way back to the time of Daniel in the 70-year captivity. This is known as the Targums, okay? So I'll just show you some of the differences here. This one's really interesting. We'll start here with the Jerusalem Targum, which is actually a very, very probably the oldest out of the three versions of the Aramaic Targum. As you can see, it's fragmented, but I'll just show you some of the differences here. Obviously, you have a huge difference here in Genesis 1:1, indicating that the Tetragrammaton is supposed to be there, not in the beginning Elohim. It would actually say in the beginning Yahuwah. So in wisdom, Yahuwah created. Okay, number one difference there. Okay, so we're going to go further on here. You got pretty much the same thing first day right here. Okay, this is another thing I've noticed with the Targums versus the Septuagint versus the Masoretic text is this phrase here, the word of Yahuwah. Okay, the word of Yahuwah is mentioned a lot more times in this version of Genesis. Okay, just looking at Genesis at face value here. So we have, okay, so now we're in chapter 2 here. I'm going to show you some other ones. Okay, here's a huge one right here. Okay, you got Genesis 3:9 in the Aramaic Targum here. Okay, you got, so says here, let's see here, walking in the garden in the strength of the day. So obviously this is probably Adam and Kuah it's referring to here. Okay, because it's talking about man shall leave his house and cleave and house of his mom and his dad, you know, cleaving to his wife. So context here is talking about Adam walking in the Garden of Eden in the strength of the day. And the word of Yahuwah Elohim came to Adam and said to him, behold, the world which I have created is manifest before me. And how thinkest that that place in the midst whereof you are is not revealed before me? Where is the commandment that I taught you? Meaning, why didn't you follow what I commanded you? The one commandment I gave you. I gave you one thing not to do. And so this is like a whole extra paragraph that we don't get in Genesis 3:9 in the Masoretic text, okay? So this is, to me, it's pretty big. That's a pretty big difference. And then you go just, you know, a couple verses later on down here, and let me see, I'll make it a different highlighter color here. Just so Genesis 3:15 says in the Aramaic Targum here, the Jerusalem Targum, and it shall be when the sons of the woman, meaning those that come from the seed of the woman, consider the Torah, the law, and perform its instructions, they will be prepared to smite you on your head to kill you. Obviously, he's talking about the seed of the woman destroying the seed of the serpent. You know, and literally the seed of the woman, like her children. which is kind of interesting. And when the sons of the woman forsake the commandment of the Torah and perform not instructions, you will be ready to wound them in their heel. So this, to me, it makes a lot more sense with the wounding of the heel and all of that. You know, he will step on your head. He will crush your head. You'll watch against his heel, or how it's worded in the Masoretic and the Septuagint. So this gives you a little bit of added information of what this is really talking about. So I like it. It says, to wound them in their heel and hurt them. Nevertheless, there shall be a medicine for the sons of the woman. But for you, serpent, there shall be no medicine, but is to be that for these there shall be a remedy for the heel in the days of the King Messiah. Wow. Okay. That is very interesting. Okay, so now we're going to go further on here. I'm trying to see, I'm trying to point out, really important differences, really doctrinal type of differences. Okay, this is, wow, there's a lot more in this verse than there is in the Masoretic or the Septuagint. Oh, my. Okay, here you go. All right. And the word of Yahuwah, so again, word of Yahuwah, this is at least 2 or 3 times we're seeing the word of Yahuwah mentioned, where the Masoretic text in Septuagint Genesis doesn't really mention this phrase. And actually, your modern Bibles won't even mention this phrase really as a person, as it referring to Yahushua the Messiah, until the New Testament times. I mean, yeah, it does say in the prophets, the word of Yahuwah came to them, but we've been taught a bias that when you see that, that's just talking about, his utterance, his speech, and that it's not a person. So you don't really get that literal idea that it's a person until the New Testament in your Bibles. So, but here in the Targums, it makes, you can get an idea that this is not just utterance and speech, it's an actual entity, a person. Okay, and the word of Yahuwah Elohim said, so now it's referring the word of Yahuwah as a being that is speaking, said, behold, Adam, whom I have created, is soul in my world, and as I am soul in the heavens above. Now that's interesting. So the word of Yahuwah is saying that he alone resides in the heavens. Interesting. It is to be that a great people are to arise from him. From him will arise a people who will know how to discern between Tob and evil. That's interesting. So it's talking about Adam and Kua's descendants. Adam and Eve's descendants will know how to discern from Tob and evil. Interesting. And now it is told that we keep him from the Garden of Eden before he stretched forth his hand. So now a week comes about, but yet the word of Yahuwah is the only person talking. Interesting. And let's see here. He stretched forth his hand and take also the fruit of the tree of life and eat it and live forever. And he cast out Adam and made the esteem of his majesty to dwell at the front of the east of the Garden of Eden above the 2 cherubim, okay, the 2 cherubs that guard the tree of life, okay. 2,000 years before he had created worlds, he created the law. Yeah, oof, that is going to put, I know Christians are not going to like seeing that. Yeah, so Yahuwah had an eternal law way before the law of Moses. Hate to be the bearer of bad news there. Yeah. Before he created the world, he created the law and prepared Gehenna in the Garden of Eden and prepared the Garden of Eden for the righteous that they should eat and delight themselves with the fruit of the tree because they had kept the commandments of the law in this world. For the wicked he prepared Gehenna, which is like the sharp consuming sword, which 2 edges. He prepared in the depth of it flakes of fire and burning coals for, let's go to the next page here. For the wicked, for their punishment forever in the world to come, who have not kept the commandment of the law in this world. For the law is the tree of life. Whoever keeps it in this life lives and sustains as the tree of life. The law is tov to keep in this world, and the fruit of the tree of life in the world that comes. So this even lets you know that there is a direct correlation between the Torah and the tree of life. So if you've been taught that, oh, we don't have to keep the law, it's faith completely alone, and there's no obedience factor at all in the plan of salvation, yeah, you might want to take a look at the Targum. You might want to take a look at the Aramaic Targum, just saying. So I'm going to highlight this personally for myself, remind myself of these important differences here. Okay, so here we go. Now we're getting to Genesis 5 here. I'm not seeing much of a huge difference here. The obvious that Yahuwah is showing that the Tetragrammaton, Yahuwah's name should be in Genesis a lot more than what it is in the Masoretic. But that's pretty obvious. Let's see, 800 years in the midst of the world. Okay. And Hanak served in truth before Yahuwah, and behold, he was not. Okay, this is a little bit added here. Let's go to Genesis 5:24 here. It says, and Hanak served in the truth before Yahuwah, and behold, he was not, for he was withdrawn by the word from before Yahuwah. So now it mentions Yahuwah, the Father, in the first part of this verse, that he served in the truth, meaning the law from the beginning of time. And behold, he was not, for he was withdrawn by the word from before Yahuwah. Okay? So right there you have Yahuwah, then you have the word of Yahuwah being mentioned, the Son, Yahusha, that he was actually taken by Yahusha. Yahusha was the one that actually took him, which is kind of interesting. So anyway, I see a lot of different differences in my opinion. That I'm seeing here. Whoops, I did not want to do that. My stupid mouse is acting up a little bit. Okay, here we go. Now this is interesting in my opinion. Okay, so we have, and the word of Yahuwah, Genesis 6:3 here, and the word of Yahuwah said, the generations which are to arise shall not be judged after the manner of the generations of the deluge, to be destroyed, exterminated, and finally blotted out. Have I not imparted my spirit to the sons of men, because they are flesh, that they may work tov works? But they do works of evil. Behold, I have given them a prolongment 120 years, that they may work repentance, but they have not done it. In my opinion, this is a huge difference here, okay? When you look at Genesis 6 in the Masoretic text, it just says that, now men's years, for they are flesh. I will not strive with man forever, for they are flesh. For their years shall be 120 years. So the difference in the Masoretic text and the Septuagint is they're trying to say that their years are 120 years, that now that's a new life expectancy. This here is saying that the reason he's giving them 120 years is for them to repent. It's not that that's an exact expectancy because of the flood. Now, obviously, their expectancy did lower gradually to the hundreds and even lower than that. If you look at the book of Psalms, King David talks about that our years are 70, 80 if by strength. So, I mean, eventually, because of sin, our expectancy did go down. I'm not saying that that's not true, but I think the Aramaic Targum is indicating the 120 years specifically being spoken of here is more of a allotted time for them to repent from their works that caused the flood, which at a later time, you guys, if you want to know about the days of Noah or you're interested about it, I'm going to be making a playlist soon on the channel for our group, for the Awakened by Yahuwah group. So just stay tuned for that. We've done so many studies about that in the past. That's the reason I'm not going to continue to do that. I don't want to beat a dead horse. So, all right. So verse 6 of chapter 6 is another difference, in my opinion. You have talking about the word of Yahuwah again. So you have Genesis 6:6, and there was repentance before Yahuwah in his word. So you have Yahushua and Yahuwah, kind of a oneness in my opinion here. So in his word, in Yahushua, his son, there's repentance of making mankind. Right here, it says that he made man upon the earth. So, you know, self-explanatory there. And so you got, let's see, you got Genesis 6:8, but Noah, because he was righteous in his generation, found favor and mercy before Yahuwah. Okay, same thing. All right. Windows of heaven were open. And right here again, Yahushua is mentioned at least 4 or 5 times. We can all notice here, 4 or 5 times more than he's been mentioned in this same book in the Masoretic text version of Genesis. So this is really interesting. It says, and the word of Yahuwah was merciful upon him. So meaning merciful upon Noah and his family. Okay. Okay, caused the wind of mercies. That's a phrase talking about his ruach there. Okay. Just seeing if there's anything else interesting about it. I know there's one in Genesis 49 I would like to get to, is a messianic prophecy that is like one last important thing I would like to just point at, and just really, let's see here, please bear with me real quick. I want to kind of skip here a little bit and go to Genesis 49. Okay, so it says here, okay, in Genesis 49, says, and we're going to go to, I think, what is it, verse 10, I believe, talks about it. Here we go. Genesis 49:10, kings shall not depart from the house of Yehuda, nor Sepharim, meaning the scepter. Sepharim, I guess that's priests or leaders teaching the law from his children's children until the time that King Messiah shall come, whose is the kingdom, and to whom all the kingdoms of the earth shall be obedient. Okay, way more specific than Shiloh. Sorry, Masoretes, but you guys really butchered this verse. I'll take the Targum version over the Masoretic version any day of the week. The Septuagint at least talks about he is the expectation of nations at the minimum in the Septuagint version of this verse. So at least those two versions help people out, and they give you more of an idea who this person is, who's coming from Yehuda's loins, that's teaching the Torah and talking about his children's children. You have this one that once Messiah comes, there's going to be no longer, and I truly believe, in my personal opinion, that's why you don't have a king on the throne in Israel right now. No one's a king in Israel right now in the land, because I believe this prophecy was foreshadowing that Yahuwah would promise King David and his lineage there would always be a king there until his son, Yahushua the Messiah, would take on flesh. And that transference would be to Yahushua. So Yahushua is the only king that Yahshua is going to have in the kingdom, in the millennial. So that's my personal opinion. I can't prove it, but it makes a lot of sense with other prophecies that refer to king always being a king in David's lineage until Messiah comes, and just the fact that it's an eternal covenant, but at the same time, as you see in Revelations, there's only one king. There's only going to be one king in the kingdom. There's not going to be a mortal king. Yahushua is going to be the king. So just saying. Anyway, wasn't trying to go on too much of a tangent, but I did want to also go back to one or two other cross-references. This is meant to be just a very, very short live video just to show you guys the differences and why I'm looking into the Aramaic Targum as well as looking into the Septuagint, and I'm starting to trust, in my opinion, the Targum more than the Septuagint. More than the Masoretic text, and also the Septuagint more than the Masoretic text. So let me see here. I think it's Genesis 14 I wanted to look at here. And in a certain Targum, it gives you added information here. So let me see here. It says, okay, it talks about slaughtering giants. All right. Let me see here. Okay. Okay, let's go back here. I want to go back to one of the other Targums that gives you a little bit more information. Yeah, another thing that's great, like I said before, is there's 3 versions of the Targums, so you can even compare them against one another. I actually like the pseudo Jonathan also for certain books. Let me just try to go back to Genesis here. The only thing that sucks is you can't I don't see a really option here on my Kindle. This is the Kindle app I have for my PC, so I really don't see an option here to actually type in a chapter, book, and verse and all that, so it kind of takes a little while. Let me just let me see if there's a way to, yeah, here we go. Here's the quicker way to do this. All right, so we're going to go next. We're almost there. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so here we go. Now, in this Targum of Jonathan, which is a little bit different, there's sometimes added historical info in certain verses, which I kind of find to be second witnesses, honestly, to books like Jasher that talk about stuff like this. So Genesis 14:1 in the Targum of Jonathan says, and it was in the days of Amraphel, he is Nimrod, okay, right there, who commanded Abram to be cast into the furnace when he was then king of Pontus Arioch, so-called, because he was tall among the giants, okay, which in the Septuagint in Genesis chapter 10, it literally says Nimrod began to be a giant. So this, there's a lot of witnesses here for what that's saying. There's a lot of witnesses, and this is definitely not a contradiction when you look at Jasher. Jasher completely agrees with this version of Genesis here. So anyway, I just wanted to mention Genesis 14:1 there. So let me highlight that for you. So again, let's see here. I'm trying to think. I don't think we've been on for that long, so I would also like to do a little study for you guys, just some differences that I came across in the Masoretic text versus the Septuagint, just something I wanted to give you guys, since I might as well, since we're already live right now. Let's see here. Where is it, Doug? Where is it? You had it from before. Okay, the Septuagint versus the Masoretic text. Okay, so yep, save that from my reading from earlier. Okay. All right, so while that takes forever and for some reason my stupid WordPad is messing up, sorry about that. Let me see here. So anyway, let me just see here. See why, I don't know why. Oh, okay, now it's working now. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what was going on. Okay, doesn't usually do that. Okay. All right, so for easy of looking at this, you guys can actually see it. Okay. All right, so anyway, Septuagint versus Masoretic text. So we're gonna kind of go rapid fire for you guys here. So Proverbs chapter 4:2, we're gonna look at here, and I'll even use the Peshitta Aramaic version of Proverbs to look at it too, but as far as I know, it should be pretty similar to the Masoretic text, so I'm not expecting to see much of a difference. So here we go. Proverbs 4:2 says in the Septuagint, "For I give you a tobe gift, forsake ye not my laws." So instead of doctrine, it's gift there. Okay. Now let's go to the Aramaic Peshitta version here, right from the Aramaic Bible in plain English. Okay. "Because I have given you a tobe teaching, forsake not my law. Sorry. So I have given you a tobe teaching, forsake not my law. Teaching is a little bit better than doctrine. I really think the way the Masoretic text has it, it's just very general, doctrine there. Septuagint is the best one, I would say. A tobe gift. It's a gift. It's something we should be joyful about, something that we should cherish. So in my personal opinion, Septuagint has it the best there. So anyway. So let me see here. We're going to try to go rapid fire here, okay? So we're about to go to Psalms 138, verse 2. Okay, that's another important one in my opinion. So let's go to Psalms 138, verse 2. Okay, so Psalms 138, verse 2. I will worship toward your set-apart temple and give thanks to your name on account of your mercy and your truth, for you have magnified your set-apart name above everything. Wow. Talk about importance of Yahuwah's name there. All right. One thing I don't like is one version of the Masoretic text here will say, you magnified your word above all your name. So he magnifies his utterance, his speech above his name. Kind of doesn't sound right there. Let's see here. I like how the modern translations try to translated so that both is just as important, like his name and his word. I really like how the New Heart English Bible does it. It will say, I will bow down toward your set-apart temple and give thanks to your name for your loving kindness and for your truth, for you exalted your name and your word above all. Yeah, I really like how the New Heart English Bible does that. I really do. So anyway, so Psalms 130, verse 2, in my opinion, if you just look at just the regular Masoretic text versus Septuagint, I would have to take the Septuagint on that particular verse. Then you got Malachi 3:16 here, okay, which talks about to think upon Yahuwah's name is the Masoretic text version. Okay, so one is talking about a book of remembrance being written for those that thought upon his name, which I think is very weird and very downplaying the importance of his name, in my opinion. So the Masoretic text right here would say to think upon, okay, kasab, right? So now you go to the Septuagint here, says, thus they spoke that feared Yahuwah, everyone to his neighbor, and Yahuwah gave heed and hearkened. And he wrote. So the difference too in the Septuagint here is Yahuwah wrote the book of remembrance before him, a book of remembrance before him for them that feared Yahuwah and reverenced his name. So the difference is Yahuwah is writing the book of remembrance before himself for those that feared Yahuwah and reverenced his name, rather than those that feared Yahuwah and thought upon his name. So, okay, there's definitely a huge difference there, okay? And obviously there's no Aramaic version of Malachi I have access to, so, you know, I can only test the Septuagint versus the Masoretic text on that one. Same thing with the prophets. I don't have any electronic version of the prophets and the other writings of the Tanakh, only the Pentateuch. So Isaiah 29:13 is another major one, which LXXE, the Brenton's English Septuagint, matches perfectly with Mark chapter 7, verses 6-7. And so we'll show you the problem with the Masoretic text version of this right now. The huge problem here is that, let's see here. It says, wherefore Yahuwah has said, for as much as the people draw near me with their mouth and with their lips to honor me, but have removed their heart far from me. Okay, that sounds like what Yahusha said, but let's read on to the last part of this verse here. And their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. So their fear for me has become a precept that's taught by men, which that's not what Yahusha says. Okay? This is a problem here. Okay? Right here, you go to Mark 7, 6-7. Okay? The wording is totally off by the Masoretic text there. Okay? It says, Mark chapter 7, verses 6-7. He answered and said unto them, well has Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, These people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. How then in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Now, that last verse right there is a quote from Isaiah. So how do we figure out where it is in Isaiah? We go to the Septuagint here, the same verse that we were just reading from in the Masoretic text, Isaiah 29:13, okay? So this is what we're going to do here. It says, and Yahuwah has said, these people draw near to me with their mouth. Here we go, Mark 7:7, verbatim. And they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching the commandments and doctrines of men. Verbatim, word for word, what Yahushua said in Mark chapter 7. That's another reason it's important to look at the Septuagint and test the Septuagint against the Masoretic text, because historically speaking, the Masoretic text was not created until Yahushua was already impaled and resurrected. Way after his resurrection, the Masoretic text was written. So there's a gap of about 900 to 1,000 years, most scholars say, between the date of the Septuagint being written and the date of the Masoretic text being written. Another big difference, okay? So realistically, the apostles, their scriptures would have been the Septuagint, not the Old Testament that's in our Bibles. End of my little rant there, but anyway. The next one we got here is Job 19:25, which says, so we're going to look at the difference here between the Septuagint and the Masoretic text, okay? So we're going to look at Job 19:25. We're first going to go with the Masoretic text version here, which says, for I know that, hold on. Let me go to the Masoretic text first, okay? For I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. Sounds okay there, but let's check the Septuagint version here. It says, for I know that he is eternal, who is about to deliver me. Now, what's interesting, though, even though it talks about he will stand at the latter day, I kind of like from the Masoretic. What I don't like is that it just says, my Redeemer lives. Okay. For I know that he is eternal, who is about to save me, who is about to deliver me. So to me, I like more that the Septuagint is showing that Yahushua, our Savior, is eternal. He's basically pre-existed. He has existed forever and ever and ever, you know. So that's what I like in Job 19:25, in my opinion, from the Septuagint. So let me see here. So now we're down to Micah chapter 5, verse 2 here. And now, we're going to get to the really hardcore part of the messianic prophecies, like the really tough differences with messianic prophecies when you look at certain words. Yeah. So like, for example here, Micah chapter 5, verse 2. Bethlehem, and you, Bethlehem, house of Ephrathah, are few in number to be reckoned among the thousands of Yehudah. Out of you shall one come forth to me to be a ruler of Yashrael. Okay, sounds the same as the Masoretic text. Okay, what's the huge difference here, you would say, Doug? Okay, let me show you. Last part of this verse here. And his goings forth were from the beginning, okay, even from eternity. Again, second witness here to Job 19:25. From eternity, eternal. He is eternal, okay? Meaning that he has no beginning and ending, Aleph and Tav, you know? Now, in the Masoretic text, it would say at the end here, it would say from everlasting. Now, what will happen here is that a lot of people that don't want to accept that he has an eternal existence, that he's pre-existed as co-creator with the Father, what they'll try to say is everlasting can just mean a time period, you know, yada, 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 that he wasn't there, you know, with Yahuwah in the beginning before the earth stood still and all that. So that's why I like the word eternal for the Septuagint there. So now we're going to go to Proverbs chapter 31, verse 30. And it says, the fear of Yahuwah is to be praised, okay? The Septuagint says that versus the virtuous woman shall be praised, okay? So we're going to look at both versions of this verse here in Proverbs 31:30. And after that, I'll let you decide and also give my opinion of which one I rather believe is correct. So we're first going to look at the Masoretic text version here. It says, favor is deceitful and beauty vain, okay, similar. A woman that fears Yahuwah shall be praised. So a woman that fears Yahuwah should be praised. So keep that in mind. That's what that says in the Masoretic text. Check out what it says in the Septuagint here. Charms are false, and a woman's beauty is vain, for it is a wise woman that is Baruch, and let her praise the fear of Yahuwah. Now, me personally, I think the Septuagint is way more accurate in this verse. And accordance to Yahuwah and Yahusha's will for us not to be put ourselves on a pedestal or, exalt ourselves more than we should be exalted, So that's just my personal opinion. But anyway, so not going to beat a dead horse there. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10 says, okay, we're going to look at the huge differences here. And I probably should have noted here also. Let me just add this little note from a cross-reference from the New Testament. I believe it's 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. You can actually link to this verse from Proverbs from the Septuagint, but you can't find it from the Masoretic text. So first we're going to go to Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10. Okay, so let's see here. All right, guys, we're getting close to being finished, but I definitely want to include these cross-references to really show you the differences here. So the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, okay? Similar, pretty much the same thing like the Masoretic there. And the counsel of set-apart ones is understanding, okay? That's where the Masoretic text would end there. For to know the law is the character of a sound mind. That the Masoretic text does not have whatsoever. Okay, and you can actually find this concept of the character of a sound mind from the Apostle Paul in 2 Timothy 1:7. I personally believe he was quoting from the Septuagint of Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10 in 2 Timothy 1:7, where it says, in the King James here, it says, for Yahuwah has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So I believe Paul was quoting from the Septuagint of Proverbs 9:10 when he was writing the letter to Timothy here in 2 Timothy. So if you go to the Proverbs version of Proverbs 9:10 in the Masoretic, you'll see half of this verse is missing. And all it says is, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the set apart understanding. So very vague at the end part of this verse here. And it's missing half of the rest of the verse that the Septuagint has. So anyway, we're going to continue here. We're going to move on here and go to Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 to 9. Okay, so Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 to 9. And we're going to see the comparison here. Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 to 9. In the Masoretic, we'll look at it first. And it says, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. Okay, mighty one, Gibborim. Okay, and if you click on Gibborim here, you'll see that it doesn't always mean powerful or mighty man. If you actually look down here, it says giant, okay? Sometimes this Hebrew word can mean giant, like a Nephilim, okay? So he began to be a mighty one on earth. He was a mighty mighty hunter before Yahuwah. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter. And if you actually look at the Hebrew word before here, panim, it can actually mean turns. So someone that turns Yahuwah, or would be against. Look at this right here. Right here, I'll highlight it for you guys. Against is another definition of this word. So to turn, to be against, could be the actual definition of that word, and it should have been who is against Yahuwah, because obviously we know later on he builds a tower. He has the Tower of Babel built, and anyone that's read the book of Jasher, you know, you'll see the whole purpose of building the Tower of Babel and all that. So I would actually choose that. The panim of the Masoretic text should have been translated as against. So in the Septuagint here version of this, it says, and Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a giant upon the earth. Okay, so giant. And to my knowledge, what happened was the Septuagint translators understood that Gibborim, when it's referring to giant, they translated it into the Greek as giant. When it was referring to David's mighty men as Gibborim, they left it as mighty men. Okay, so they actually knew the difference between when it should be giant and when it should be a mighty warrior. Okay, so the problem with this is that they actually, basically, this Masoretic text people that made the Masoretic text, the Masoretes, they just, every time Gibborim was translated as mighty man. So that's where it gets confusing. And that's why in certain places in prophecy where we're supposed to see giant, in my opinion, we don't see it in the Masoretic text. So anyway, so let's see here. All right, so now we're up to Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. Okay. So we're going to look at both versions there. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. Let's see here. For the commandment, a lamp. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. So the Masoretic text here. For the commandment, a lamp, and the law, light, and reproofs of correction, the way of life. So it's separating there in the Masoretic text the Torah from the commandment, which is kind of weird. It's like trying to make it two different things, which is a little weird in my opinion. Maybe it's poetic, I don't know, but if you look at the Septuagint, it flows a lot better here. It says, for the commandment of the law, not the commandment and the law, not like it's two different things. It's the same thing. The instruction of the Torah, okay? For the instruction of the Torah is a lamp and a light. So lamp and light. I kind of like that. You kind of see that in the book of Revelations too. Like the lamb is the lamp. You know, there's no need anymore for the sun and the moon. The lamb is the lamp, and Yahuwah is the light that shines from the lamp. So, you know, it's kind of like the same thing. Reproof also and correction. So reproof can also mean to expose. That Greek word that's sometimes translated as reproof in the New Testament, Greek New Testament Septuagint, sometimes it actually means to expose, to bring to light something that's in the dark. So correction is not always universally the meaning of reproof. So that's why it says reproof also and correction. So exposing also and correction, or bringing to light also and correction. So anyway, hopefully that helps people out there. I know there's some people that are like confused, like why is reproof and correction separate? You know, I used to think they were the same word until I studied it out for myself. Joshua chapter 5, verse 14, you know, the book of Joshua, the son of Nun, Yahushua, son of Nun, chapter 5, verse 14, there's something missing there in the Masoretic text that we're about to analyze right now. Okay, it says, let's see here. It says, see here where we are. Here we go. Book of Yahushua, chapter 5, verse 14. We're going to look at the Masoretic text first, and it says, okay. Sorry about that. Got a dry throat for a second, guys. Sorry about that. All right, so let's go with the King James and the Strong's numbers to see what it says here, okay? So the Masoretic text version says, and he said, no, but captain of the army of Yahuwah am I, now come. And Yahushua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and he said unto him, what saith my Lord, like my master, what do you say unto your servant? So, okay, so he's the captain of Yahuwah's army, okay, and right before that he talks about take your shoe off, or actually the verse after that, where you stand is set apart ground, okay? So, or I don't know if it literally says that in verse 15 here, where it says the captain of Yahuwah's army said unto Yahushua, loose your shoe from off your foot, for the place where you stand set apart. So, I mean, it's very verbatim what Yahushua in the flame of the bush said to Masha. So we know this is Yahushua. It's pretty obvious. The captain of Yahuwah's army, okay? But what's different here in the Masoretic text, something's extra here. It doesn't just say the captain of the army of Yahuwah. It says, and he said to him, I now come, the chief captain of Yahuwah's army, the chief captain. So I kind of like how it says chief captain there. All right, and so that's pretty much the huge difference, is chief is not there in the Masoretic text. So it makes it a little bit more specific. Okay, so now we got Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 here, which there's a little bit extra in the Septuagint than the Masoretic text in this verse. So we're going to analyze that real quick. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 here says, from the Masoretic text, okay, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Okay. Kind of stops there when it talks about fools despise wisdom and instruction. And the Septuagint says, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and there is Tob understanding to all that practice it. That part's not even in the Masoretic. It's like, whoof, completely omitted out of there. And then this part is even omitted. And piety, meaning reverence towards Elohim, is the beginning of discernment. Wow, that's an important part of the verse to let go. So you got two different parts of this verse that's not in the Masoretic text. So all the Masoretic text has the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and the wicked will set at nothing wisdom and instruction. But they're missing like the whole middle part of this verse that talks about there is Tob understanding to all that practice it, and reverence towards Elohim is the beginning of discernment. But the wicked will set at nothing wisdom and instruction. Without those middle parts, in my opinion, of this verse, the way the Septuagint has it, it doesn't make as much sense the way the Masoretic text has it read. So I kind of like that. The Septuagint gives you a little bit more context in that verse. Here we go. We got not Proverbs, my bad. Psalms chapter 119, verse 105. Okay, so this is a pretty simple one. You can easily see the difference here. I'm about to show you. So this is one that really, it's a difference of vocabulary more than anything else. Okay, so you're going to see what I'm talking about in a second. Let's see, 119, 105 says, thy law. Okay, so the Septuagint is not just saying word. It says, your law is a lamp to my feet and a light unto my paths. Thy law is a lamp unto my feet. Okay, now you go to the Masoretic, it says, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. So, and also it's singular for path here in the Masoretic, which is kind of interesting. So you have paths in the Greek. That's kind of interesting. So singular versus plural, and then you have, obviously law versus word. So the next one we're going to do is Daniel chapter 12, verse 4 here. Okay, many will be taught versus to and fro, which is kind of interesting difference here you have in the book of Daniel. Another historical thing people don't know about the book of Daniel that's in our scriptures is that it's actually in Aramaic. It was originally written in Aramaic. So most people don't realize that. But anyway, so here we go. In the Masoretic text version, it says, "But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. To the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." So many will run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So we're going to look at that phrase, shall run to and fro, knowledge shall increase. Okay. Septuagint says here, "And you, Daniel, close the words and seal the book to the time of the end, until many are taught and knowledge is increased," which makes a lot more sense in my opinion. You know, many will be taught versus you're just running to and fro and finding information out of nowhere. You know, in the digital age, I can kind of understand that, but more or less someone is teaching you something from scripture. More or less your brothers and sisters, you know, those that are believers in Yahuwah Almighty, Yahushua Messiah, you know, we're teaching one another. So I kind of agree with the Septuagint, in my opinion, a little bit more. And this is one that is really, 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 really what I would call controversial, in my opinion. So, and this is something I want to fix at the bottom of here, is I kind of had one of these cross references copied here where I didn't want them to be copied. Okay, here we go. I had a duplicate there. Okay, here we go. Isaiah 65, verse 11. Okay. Septuagint is very literal with this. I kind of like how the Septuagint gives you the meaning, the definition of a verse rather than transliterating from Hebrew to English. Sometimes the meaning gets lost in translation. You know, the old saying goes. Okay, so the Brennan's English Septuagint says for this verse, "But you are they that have left me and forget my set-apart mount and prepare a table for the devil and fill up the drink offering to fortune." So you have prepare a table for the devil, okay? Keep that in mind when we go to the Masoretic text here, okay? The transliteration that is going to be for that word in the Hebrew is translated by the Septuagint translators as the person Satan, the devil. Just keep that in mind here. And this is the main reason why I don't use God as a title or a name. This is the main reason. I'll put it out there right now. This is the main reason, because this verse is telling you who God or Gad actually is, who the person God is, okay? And it's not our creator. So, "But you are they that forsake Yahuwah." So I'll give points to the Masoretic text. They actually have Yahuwah instead of me there. A little bit more specific. I kind of like that. Okay. "But you are they that forsake Yahuwah, that forget my set-apart mountain, and prepare a table for," it should actually say God in the Hebrew here. See, God. It's, even though it's spelled in English as Gad, it's actually pronounced as God, like ah for a. Okay, so forget my set-apart mountain, and that prepare a table, meaning giving a sacrifice to this idol God, which is, in my opinion, is pretty clear from the Septuagint. It's the same person as the devil. Okay, and then it says, "And that furnish the drink offering unto fortune." That number is actually supposed to be menai, or fortune. Okay, menai, money, manai, one eye. Okay, the deity of money, basically, fortune, luck. You know. Okay, so that was Isaiah 65:11 in the Septuagint and Masoretic text here. Okay, so. All right, let's see here. What we got left here? We got, and I'm sorry, you guys. I apologize for making this so long, but this was a lot longer study than I realized. Okay, sorry about that. But hopefully this message so far is a baraka to my brothers and sisters out there watching this live feed. Okay, Isaiah 13 verses 3 and 5, we're going to look at from the Masoretic and the Hebrew, and we're also going to look in that same chapter at 21 to 22 of that same chapter. Okay, so Isaiah 13 we're going to turn to here. Okay, we're almost done here, guys, almost done. So let's see here. We got Isaiah 13. Here we go. Okay, this is a big one here. Okay, the problem with this is, see, they have combined my set apart ones and my mighty ones as one verse. And I'll show you what happened here. This is the problem again with the phrase gibberim from the Hebrew. Okay, now watch this here. Instead of separating it, instead of combining it in the Masoretic text, the Septuagint has actually separated these two terms in two different verses to give you the context, who his kadashim, set apart ones, are, and who are the mighty ones, you could say. Okay, it says, I give command, here comes the Gibberim, the mighty ones, I bring them, giants, Gibberim, Gibor, are coming to fulfill my wrath, rejoicing at the same time and insulting. Then you go to verse 5 here. To come from a land afar off, from the utmost foundation of heaven. Yahuwah and his warriors are coming to destroy all the world. Yahuwah and his warriors are separate from these giants. Even Yahuwah is commanding them. Giants are fulfilling his wrath. Giants are doing it. Yes, he's commanding them to fulfill his wrath, rejoicing at the same time insulting, but that is separate from these warriors that are with Yahuwah. See the difference there? So that's why I like the Septuagint here. It helps you out with stuff like that, especially when they combine those two terms together in one verse. You give a thought. You have the inclination from the Masoretic text that it's the same people. No, it's two different groups of people. One is actually human beings or his angels, and the other is these giants that most likely Yahuwah is going to allow the bottomless pit to open up so these giants are fulfilling his wrath. But anyway, we're going to see the differences here in the Masoretic text of Isaiah 13, 21 to 22. It says, but wild beasts shall rest there, talking about end times Babylon, and the houses shall be filled with howling, and monsters shall rest there, and devils shall dance there, and satyrs shall dwell there, and hedgehogs shall make their nests in their houses. It will come soon and will not tarry, meaning it will not be prolonged. Okay? So we're going to see the difference here. The first number one difference in the Masoretic text is a lot of times where it says satyr, it will just say, it will just say goat or male goat. Okay. So right here, the difference here is, this is kind of interesting. In Masoretic, it says, text, it says, the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant places. In her time near to come, her days shall not be prolonged. So dragons instead of satyrs. That's kind of interesting. Verse 21 says, the wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. Okay, that's kind of vague. Doleful creatures, what? And owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. So it does have satyrs, but at the same time, you have owls instead of devils, and doleful creatures instead of monsters. So it's a lot more vague in verse 21, in my opinion. It's a lot more vague in Masoretic, in my humble opinion. So now we're going to move on here to Ezekiel 32:20, which says, the giants shall also say to you. So to kind of make it quicker, I'm just going to show you really quick the differences here. I won't keep going back from LXX to the Masoretic text. I'll just show you in the Septuagint. You can look it up in whatever scriptures you might have of your own. You can look up and see the difference. But just for time's sake, I'm going to go straight to the Septuagint version only. Okay. Here we go. Ezekiel 32, verse 20. They shall fall with him in the midst of them that are slain with the sword, and all his strength shall perish. The giants shall also say to you. That phrase, the giants shall also say to you, is not there at all in the Masoretic text. At all. It's not even there. So it's very interesting. So again, they shall fall with him in the midst of them that are slain with the sword, and all his strength shall perish. The giants shall also say to you. Wow. All right, so moving on here, kind of doing rapid fire a little bit. We only got 3 more cross references here. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 31. Okay, so again, Proverbs 11:31, you can actually find Kapha, Peter, quoting from in the Greek New Testament. So we're going to go to Proverbs 11:31. I believe this is the cross-reference here where it talks about if the righteous be scarcely saved. They don't even have a cross-reference for it in the ISR. That's interesting. If the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the wicked and sinner appear? Now, just for informational purposes, I want to get you guys the actual New Testament version of this verse so you can see I'm not making this stuff up. Okay, so let's go here. If the righteous be scarcely saved, okay, 1 Peter 4:18, all right? So we're going to go to 1 Peter 4:18 and show you here that this connection between the Old Testament and New Testament you will not get unless you have a Old Testament that is from the Septuagint. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 18 says, and if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the wicked and sinner appear? Wherefore, let them that suffer according to the will of Yahuwah commit the keeping of their beings to him in well-doing as unto a trustworthy creator. Wow. So verse 18 of 1 Peter chapter 4 is a direct correlation with Proverbs chapter 11, verse 31 of the Septuagint, okay? So that's another one where the apostles obviously had the Septuagint on them. Okay? Proverbs chapter 21, verse 16 is one of the last ones I wanted to go to here. Okay? Let's see here. So Proverbs chapter 21, verse 16. Okay? All right. And it says, the man that wanders out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. This is an important vocabulary difference too. Unfortunately, in your English translations of the Masoretic text, this root word, this Hebrew root word for Raphaim is translated every time as just dead, deceased. But notice the primary definition before dead is a ghost. What would we consider a ghost in the scriptures, in the Bible? A demon. That's what a ghost is, a demon. So this is actually talking about the spirits of the dead giants. Hence why in the Hebrew you have Rapha, which is also the root word for Raphaim, which is a tribe of giants, and which in the Septuagint, Raphaim is translated as giants. So I'll show you that right here. Same word. So they translate the root word Rapha as giants. Why? Because they understand it's talking about demons, not just regular dead people. It's talking about demons, the dead giants that have their spirits. You know, the spirits of the dead giants we would refer to as ghosts or demons in modern terminology. Okay. Says Proverbs 21:16, a man that wanders out of the way of righteousness shall rest in the congregation of giants. Okay, so all right, and we're almost done here, guys. Hopefully this really intrigued you to test out different versions of the scriptures. Hopefully this was a baraka to you guys, but we're soon to be finished here. Let me just see if there's anything I missed. Okay. He shall, now we got Hosea chapter 8, verse 1 here. Okay. So Hosea chapter 8, verse 1. All right. So we're going to go there. And Hosea 8, verse 1 says, he shall come into their midst as the land, as an eagle against the house of Yahuwah, because they have transgressed my covenant and have sinned against my law. Okay, this actually wasn't really a difference here, so I have to apologize for that. My bad. That's actually, I shouldn't have had that cross-reference down. It's pretty much the same there. My bad about that. All right, we already read Genesis 49, 10 to 11. Okay, well, we read verse 10. Verse 11 just talks about the winepress, which is pretty much the same in both versions. Okay, we're going to go to Jeremiah, then Isaiah and Psalms, and then we'll just have some stuff about the Sabbath being omitted in different versions of the Tanakh, like the Masoretic text. So here we go. We got Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 19. So Jeremiah 11, verse 19 here, there's a huge difference when you compare the Masoretic versus the Septuagint. Says, okay, but I, like a lamb or an ox, is brought to the slaughter, and I knew not that they devised devices against me, saying, let us destroy the tree with the fruit thereof. Let us cut him off from the land of the living, that his name may be no more remembered. So most of that verse is the same, but when you get to that verse in the middle there, let us destroy the fruit thereof. Okay. Let us destroy the tree with its fruit thereof. So, okay, you go to the Septuagint, makes it a little bit more specific. You can get more of an idea who this is talking about, actually, who is the innocent lamb. But I, as an innocent lamb, led to the slaughter. It says nothing about being an ox or an ox, okay? Way more specific. But I, as an innocent lamb, led to the slaughter, knew not against me. They devised an evil device, saying, come, let us put wood into his bread. Wood, the stake, the tree, the cross, okay, into his bread, his body, okay, and let us destroy him from off the land of the living. Let his name not be remembered anymore. I just really like how the Septuagint really shows this has to be talking about Yahushua. Can't be talking about anyone else. So, okay, now we got Isaiah chapter 53, 7 to 12 here. Okay, so the famous chapter in Isaiah 53 we're going to go to next. And let me just fix something real quick because I made a little mistake here. I can't actually show to you this one, the Psalms 24:1. Unfortunately, I can't show you guys literally on the eSword because it's in the original Greek, it would be really hard to show you guys since I don't know Koine Greek by heart at this point. So I'll leave that one out, but there's tons of other ones when we get to the Sabbath part. Here we go. Isaiah 53, 7 to 12. Okay, we're going to go to that one. All right, so Isaiah 53, 7 to 12. Okay, which says, and he, because of his affliction, opens not his mouth. He was led as a sheep to the slaughter, and as a lamb before the shearer is dumb. So he opens not his mouth. Now this you can verbatimly find about Yahushua in the New Testament. Verbatimly. In his humiliation, his judgment was taken away. Who shall declare his generation? For his life is taken away from the earth. Because of the lawlessnesses of my people, meaning of Israel, of Yasharal, he was led to death. I will give the wicked for his burial and the rich for his death, for he practiced no lawlessness. Remember how Yahushua says, workers of iniquity, workers of lawlessness, I do not know you. And remember, Yahushua says, give you an example, do as I do. Okay, just keep that in mind. For he practiced no lawlessness nor craft with his mouth. Yahuwah also is pleased to purge him from his stroke. If you can give an offering for sin, your being shall see a long-lived seed. Now, I believe that this particular verse in the Septuagint is kind of switching gears here now, talking about a conversation that Yahusha and Yahuwah had with one another, and Yahusha being the mediator for us, offered to Yahuwah to give up his life so that we could eventually have salvation through him when he returns. And that's why it says, if you can give an offering for sin, your being shall see a long-lived seed, meaning he offered himself up for our sins. Okay. Yahuwah also is pleased to take away from the travail of his being, to show him light, and to form him with understanding, to make righteous the righteous one who serves many well, and he shall bear their sins. Therefore he shall inherit many, and he shall divide the spoils of the mighty, because his being was delivered to death. He was numbered among the transgressors. And he bore the sins of many and was delivered because of their lawlessnesses. So I just believe those verses from Isaiah 53 from the Septuagint are a little bit more specific with correlating with Yahusha there. And this is another one here. Proverbs chapter 40, verse 6, which in the book of Romans, if I'm not mistaken, Paul quotes from this saying, sacrifice for sin you have not desired, but body you have prepared for me. Okay, so what we're going to do here real quick is I'm going to search for this real quick. Okay, so a body you have prepared for me. Okay, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 5. Okay, so we're going to go back here. We're going to take off share screen here. We're going to go to Hebrews chapter 10, verse 5. Okay, Hebrews 10, 5. Okay, so first we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 10, verse 5. All right. And let's see here. Let's go to the ISR, I think. Here we go. So it says, okay, what is going on here? That's weird. It's supposed to be on a share. There we go. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 5. Therefore, coming into the world, he says, slaughtering a meal offering you did not desire, but a body you have prepared for me. Okay. In burnt offerings and offerings for sin, you did not delight. Okay. Now we got to find out. Okay. It's saying here, Psalms 46-7. Problem is, if you go to the Masoretic version of it, it doesn't say that, which is kind of weird, you would say. Okay. So you go to the Masoretic version. Slaughtering a meal offering you did not desire, but you have opened my ears. Opened my ears? What? Okay, you go to the Septuagint, it's word for word with what Paul says. Sacrifice and offering you would not, but a body you have prepared for me. Whole burnt offering and sacrifice for sin you did not require. Then I said, behold, I come. In the volume of the book it is written concerning me. So verbatim what Paul says in Hebrews 10:5, he's basically quoting from the Septuagint version of Psalms 40, verse 6. All right. So now we're going to go to some places in the Septuagint where the Sabbath is mentioned, but it's not in the Masoretic text. Okay. So here we go. Here we got Psalms 38, verse 1. Okay. Psalms 38, verse 1. All right. A psalm of David for remembrance concerning the Sabbath day. Huh. Why is that not in the Masoretic text? Wow. Concerning the Sabbath day, nowhere mentioned. So, very interesting. You would think someone that's actually keeping the Sabbaths, like the Masoretes, they're supposed to be Judeans. Why would they leave that out? A little weird. Okay. Psalms 92, verse 1. And we're going to go back to the Brentons here, okay? Psalms 92, verse 1 says, all right, here we go. The Masoretic text says a psalm for the Sabbath. Okay, they actually have the Sabbath there. Okay, I'll give them credit for it. They actually have the Sabbath there. All right, so it's not a difference there. I was wrong. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay, so now we're going to go to Amos 6:3, which I believe this is a really tricky one, really interesting one in my opinion, Amos 6:3. Then we're going to end with one verse from the Greek New Testament. Amos 6:3, which says, Ye who are approaching the evil day, who are drawing near and adopting false Sabbaths. Wow. Could that be a prophecy that's being fulfilled today? Possibly. Very possible. It talks about ye that put far away the evil day and cause the seed of violence to come near. So it talks nothing about adopting false Sabbaths. Wow. Okay, and here's another interesting one. This is more or less the problem with English translators in the New Testament here in 1 Corinthians 16:2. There's only one translation of the Greek New Testament I could find, and it's from an actual Greek Orthodox Bible. You could say it's from the Apostolic Bible of Polyglot, if I'm not mistaken. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 16. Let's see here. Yeah, 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2. If you look in your Bibles, it will probably say the first day of the week. Right here it says, according to one of the Sabbaths. So they weren't gathering on the first day of the week. Interesting. English translators would want to mistranslate Sabbaton as first day of the week. Kind of interesting. Yep, right here in the Greek. Sabbaton, Sabbath day. The seventh day of each week. It's not the first day. Interesting. So hopefully this study really enlightens some people, and hopefully the viewers and listeners and my brothers and sisters out there, hopefully this kind of really gotten you eager to test out the different manuscripts and different translations of these manuscripts. And, we just need to hold fast to what is to test all things, okay? So when someone says to you, oh, that's not a big deal, it's not really that important to look into other Old Testaments and other Tanakhs and other New Testaments, oh, they're all the same. Don't believe them. That's mainly tradition we've been taught from man to man, from dad to son, mother to daughter, mother to son, dad to daughter, people that have been raised as believers and have came from the Christian church and stuff like that are told, oh, you don't need to worry about these other versions, yada, yada, yada. This whole idea of KJV only or whatever translation you were raised with to only trust in. I would encourage you test all translations, test all manuscripts, okay? And there is a big difference between the Septuagint, between the Masoretic text, between the Aramaic Targums of the Pentateuch. So this is just a video for encouragement to be uplifting in the body of Messiah. Thank you for joining me today. Shalom, guys.